It's Monday, October 26th, 2020. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is... wait, Audition fucked up. One sec.
Oh. That's what you get for using that new Audition like me.
Yep, it reset my hardware preferences, so it was trying to record from an interface that's not on. Give me 2 seconds.
I guess I'll stop and
yep.
probably
I can
save the metadata, delete.
ASIO. I gotta go back to ASIO. Thank you, Audition.
Delete these guys. Okay.
Okay, that was the problem. Now I gotta remap all my channels really quick.
How was the WAV since I switched the microphone?
It was great. There's a really, it's got a lot of noise, but in like one band that I made a filter to remove. I'll show you a screenshot of it. Like you'll see, it's not a big deal. It's at like 16,000 hertz, so it's kind of above like most humans. Like it won't cause a problem.
No one could hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, like people could hear it. It could mess up filters.
Maybe it's like my phone near the thing. Maybe I'll move my phone over.
I doubt it because it is hyper consistent.
Oh, okay.
It looks like
the phone one usually is more like a high-pitched modem noises, just because it's higher frequency.
No, this looks like leakage inside of your pathway, so it's probably just the preamp itself. It's minor. It's not a lot of noise. Like it doesn't cause a problem.
It could also be a shitty USB key. I guess not. It's digital. It could be XLR cable.
It's one of those. It's a band like a notch filter gets rid of it.
Not a lot of pathway here.
Exactly. All right. I'm recording again.
Me too.
All right. Now we can actually do the show. And the listener had to listen to all of that. Welcome to the party.
You learned your lesson. I told you to go away.
It's Monday, October 26th, 2020. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about facial recognition technology. So, tried to vote. I knew, voting's big this year. Like a lot of people are voting who have never voted before. And a lot of people are trying to vote early. A lot of people who were going to mail a ballot aren't mailing a ballot because the post office is all...
these people vote, next year and the year after.
Yeah.
And
well,
the year after that.
It's tricky though, because some of them have never voted before, but a lot of them are also voting early and avoiding, post office problems. But I figured New York City... The first day of early voting, I wasn't going anywhere near that because I got a whole week where I can vote before Election Day.
Here's the thing about the early voting, right? Finally, this is the first time during, I think, a major election that New York City State has had early voting because we just passed it. Thanks to our previous elections where we didn't early vote, we regular voted, and we voted for people who made us
vote in election years that aren't leap years, guys. Like, come on.
Yeah. We voted those years. We were able to get, the early voting to happen in the first place. So normally the election day is a Tuesday, which is really stupid. That's what they wrote in the freaking Constitution. I don't know. They like Tuesdays. So then, right, people are fucking working on Tuesday. So as soon as early voting, now you can vote on Saturday and Sunday. That's how people can turn out. They don't have to go to fucking work. They can vote, right?
Well, especially because there was just that thing that Nate Silver linked to that talked about what are the specific reasons Americans don't vote. And the number one reason across all demographics was the wait in line to vote was more than an hour.
Also, people, there is technically a law that your boss has to let you go vote on Tuesday if
bosses
you don't have
don't
time
do that.
Well, people don't have the balls to tell their boss that and then fight and whatever. They just go to work. It's more important than to vote for them. So,
but I figured I wouldn't go on the first day because I figured that's usually the day when people like me.
Saturday and Sunday were going to be a complete trash fire because for early voting, not only is this the only time you can vote on the weekend.
Yeah.
Right. The early voting in New York has fewer locations than actual election day. Election day, there's tons of locations open because all these people who don't work on election day go to become poll workers.
Yep.
And that way that enables them to open up more locations. During the early voting, it's only the locations that the BOE has staff for that can work all those days, the old retired people and such. And so there's a lot less locations with a lot less hours. And because it's weekend, this is the only time on the weekend, less locations. Yeah, it's going to be a long line.
Yep. So Saturday, we got there right when it opened. And the line, we see a line. We're like, okay, it doesn't look so bad. It's socially distanced line.
People really, really, really want to vote right now.
So we walk down the line, keep walking down the line. And then, there's the end of it. Nope. It's like a PAX line. It's around the corner. And then around another corner. And then we realized it was like a 4 or 5 hour line. And we're going to vote a different day.
So what I did is I'm going to vote early and often. I sent in the mail-in ballot long ago, but I'm going to go in New York, right? So there were other people from other states who are my friends who were saying, "Oh, New York is so dumb. They don't open the absentee ballots till after." And they talked about how someone showed up to vote in person who had received an absentee ballot in the mail, at least according to the records, but they had not brought it with them to prove that they had not used it. Therefore, they had to fill out a provisional, affidavit, whatever ballot, because, as soon as that state receives ballots in the mail from voters, they open them right away. New York doesn't open them till after the election.
Almost no states open them in advance, which is a big problem.
Right. Well, some states do. They're including my friends.
Yeah, but most states don't.
Right. So not voting them till after is actually kind of good, because the advantage is that I can now vote by mail. And then if I feel like voting in person, maybe I just change my fucking mind. I don't know. Right. Maybe I just want to make sure. Maybe I'm not sure if I'll be able to vote in person, so I send one in case I can't. But then if I can, I go and do that anyway. And what happens is when they go on the day after the election or the night or whatever, they start opening the absentee ballots once the polls close, and they see, wait a minute, this is from Scott. Scott voted in person near his town, near his house. We'll just throw this one in the trash.
Yeah,
right?
But some states can't even do that.
And maybe I'll get lucky and they won't throw it in the trash and I'll get to vote twice.
But then you've committed a federal crime.
They can't prove it, because once they open that second envelope, because what they do is there's the outside envelope.
We've got an admission right here, live on Geek Nights.
Yeah, they open the first envelope, right? And now they're sitting at the second envelope, which is my name on it, right? And those envelopes, they don't open them, but they verify each one. So this is the part where they would say, "Oh, this envelope says Scott on it, and he voted at the school or whatever, or the old folks' home. Throw this out," and they throw out the whole thing, right? If they mess that up and they open that envelope and they throw out the envelope that says Scott on it, right? Now they're left with an anonymous ballot. They got to count it.
Yeah.
Right? GG, I got to vote twice, maybe, if they fuck up. But legally, I am allowed to both mail it in and then vote in person. So
check your state laws, though.
What?
Check your state laws, though. Every state is radically different because America's a really stupid country.
Yeah, they explicitly allowed that in New York. So if I see that there's an opportunity to go vote in person and it's not crowded or anything and there's no line, I'll go over and do it. And if no such opportunity presents itself, I already voted. So
the importance of this is not so much in New York, because New York's going to go blue no matter what, but partly because we have a sitting president who won't commit to
elections that got us early voting in the first place.
Yep. But we have a sitting president who won't commit to the peaceful transfer of power, and the Supreme Court has just been destroyed. So we're in a situation where if election night and the day after aren't a clear Biden victory, then court cases and nonsense could actually overturn the election and cause a lot of drama. The more votes get counted the day of the election, the better. Like, that's a really important thing, especially in certain states like Pennsylvania that could determine the entire election. But so we're going to go either like in the middle of a workday, like one day this week, or they alternate the days. Like some days it opens at like 7 a.m. and closes at 4, and some days it opens at like 11 a.m. and closes at like 8 p.m. So we might just get up early.
Poll workers can't work from 7 to 8. They want to give some people who can go late an opportunity, and some people can go early an opportunity.
Though, from what I heard, the people have been stuck at the polling places every night for like 4 or 5 extra hours because of how many people get in line. They can't turn anyone away.
But if you went from 7 to 8, they'd be there from 7 to midnight instead of 10 to midnight or 7 to 8.
That was always my strategy when I was a kid. We'd go to Cedar Point, the roller coaster park, and the park would close at 11. But all that meant was all the restaurants close, and all the lines don't let anyone else get in line. So what we would always do.
That's you were taking advantage of their policy. But what they should do is have the PAX policy, which is at 6 o'clock, a big wall of enforcers just pushes everyone out immediately. The end.
Yeah, but you got to let people vote. And if they're too slow to process that line.
Voting, yes. But amusement park.
Yep.
No. But if I ran the amusement park, I'd push you out. But if I ran the voting, I would not.
Oh, it was so great, though. Like, me and all my friends would literally, like, get into a multi-hour line at 10:59 with a pile of, like, chicken fingers and Mountain Dew, and we would be we would try to be the last people in that line on purpose. So we would be the last people walking out of the park at, like, 1 a.m.
Just let everyone cut you.
We would let anyone who came in after us, we'd always let cut. We were the last people in line having a chicken finger party. That was like a thing.
All right. I could go for some chicken fingers right now.
I actually could too. I'm pretty hungry. So there is actually some big news. It's not as big a news as some of you nerds are thinking, but it is really big news. They have confirmed that there is water on the moon. We've suspected it for a long time. There's a lot of evidence of it, but they basically have absolutely confirmed that there is significant amounts of water on the moon.
If you collected all the water on the moon in a cup, how big would the cup be?
It'd be bigger than a cup. Now, it's
like a swimming pool.
Well, you can read the article to see all the details, but basically they found water in places they didn't expect to find water, and it seems to be protected. It's not a lot of water. I think they said in those parts, like on the sunny side of the moon, like not on the poles, there's the equivalent of a 12-ounce bottle of water per cubic meter of soil. Not a ton.
Cubic meter. 12.
A cubic yard is close enough. You can think of it that way.
That's if you collect literally all the water, which is really hard to do even on Earth, right? It's
Yep, the water is basically trapped in like either dust particles or maybe glass beads.
If I pull a plant out of the ground or something, that's got water in it, right? But like, can I extract 100% of the water from that plant? It's pretty difficult.
Well, you can get pretty close, actually.
I can get a lot. I can get a lot, but you can't get all of it. You're not going to get the full 12 ounces.
But basically, they found water in a lot of places around the moon, and it implies that there might be a larger source of water near the poles. And it's just cool that they actually, like, this was I don't know, decades and decades coming. Like, the Soviets detected what they thought was water there in the late 70s, but no one could ever prove it definitively until now. It's
hard to prove something that's small and clear and,
Yeah. Also, it's not like we've sent anyone back to the moon to do more science.
Yeah,
we can only science it from afar
with our fancier technology, right? We've only explored the moon with 70s technology.
Yeah, basically. And now we're scanning and analyzing it with 2000s technology, maybe some 2010s technology.
Yep.
So yeah, you can read the story. Like, I'm not gonna that's the news. There's literally, for real, 100%. There is significant amounts of water on the moon, and that's actually pretty cool. I partly make this my news because there's a lot of things about space, like things about black holes, things about other galaxies that are like quasars and things that we just think of as like common knowledge. Like, oh yeah, we know that. But a lot of things that are commonly understood and obvious about space were only actually discovered in the last 30 or 40 years. Like, textbooks I had in elementary school did not have this information.
Well, there's also just a lot of things. It's like, we mostly know, we're really, really sure. And then there'll be a news that's like, it's 100%, or at least as not 100%, but 99.9% confirmed, like as confirmed as can be now. It's like, aha. And it's like, it's sort of a news, but it sort of lacks its impact because you sort of already kind of knew,
Yeah, but there's also hindsight bias where you feel like you always knew, but you didn't. Our brains are really good at learning something new and saying, I always knew that.
But if you ask me yesterday, all right, let's take bets.
If you asked me yesterday, I would have said probably.
On the moon,
I'd say
water
probably.
On the moon. Yes, no. You got to bet on yes or no. You got no choice.
I would have bet on yes.
I would have bet on yes, because I'd be like, how many molecules counts? One molecule of water? Yes.
Yep.
Neil Armstrong, like a drop of water from his sweat got out or something.
But if you asked me, say, a decade ago, are there white holes alongside black holes? I probably would have bet on yes, but we're increasingly leaning toward no.
All right. So a news I got here that's pretty big going around the tech peoples, but is largely understood, sometimes blown out or under proportion, right? So there is a tool called YouTube DL. It lets you download videos from YouTube, a feature that is not an official YouTube feature. But according to whispers I have heard from unnamed, unverified sources, it is, I think, likely, in my opinion, that there are developers working at YouTube who intentionally design YouTube in such a way that it is not obvious that you can download things from YouTube, because obviously they would never allow that, right? But it is always possible if you are technologically sophisticated enough, and that is why a tool like YouTube DL is possible to create. It'll always be possible to create because it's always...
If I can seize it, I can records it.
Right. It's always a hole. Right?
I mean, I'm using OBS right now to record my screen. I could just record a YouTube video with OBS if I really wanted to.
there's even just a hole just in the fact that, while the video has to come to your computer and get decoded into frames, you could always grab it there because you're the administrator of your own computer.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, also because you can't even rely on like private encryption keys and browsers because YouTube works on multiple browsers.
Right.
Like,
So it'd always be possible, but it's slightly easier than it could be because of those developers that I have heard rumors of that are unverified. So this tool, YouTube DL, exists. It is used by many people for various reasons, some legitimate, some not legitimate, some piracy.
yeah.
All of which I'm okay with personally,
Yeah.
but the law is not okay with some of them.
Well, the law is
So-
complicated. The RIAA is against this.
Sure,
The
yeah, but
law
I'm
doesn't
saying-
understand this issue sufficiently.
Right, but I'm saying that some of these uses are illegal under some laws and some are not. So
Yeah.
what happened is the source code of this tool, YouTube DL, is available on GitHub because it's an open source project. GitHub received a DMCA takedown request from the RIAA, and they were saying, "Hey, take down this YouTube DL."
Their
So
argument
this
was,
is-
quote, that the code is inherently illegal.
Right. So this is interesting because right, it would not be under the normal DMCA takedown notice because YouTube DL, the source code itself, is not a copyright infringement. It's not like there's some other tool that YouTube DL is a pirated copy of.
Yup.
Right. It's not like it's a pirated Photoshop or something. Right. it's a unique, on its own freely licensed piece of software. So the code itself is not illegal. The argument the RIAA was making was that this is a tool for circumvention, right? A copyright circumvention tool. But the DMCA is like, hey, you can't have DRM circumventing tools. Well, YouTube DL isn't really circumventing a DRM. There isn't like a DRM on YouTube the way that like CSS is DRM.
I was about to bring up
DVD.
CSS. DCSS, they had a better case on, but that wasn't the RIAA. That was the MPAA.
Right. YouTube DL is sort of, YouTube isn't implementing a DRM to keep you from downloading videos. It's just not providing that as a feature.
Yep.
So you're saying,
I
is the lack
believe-
of a download button and you sort of adding one.
I do
a
believe that
circumvention-
YouTube has language to the effect of we do not allow downloads. That is
Something
how
like that,
licensed
but that
content
would be a
appears on YouTube.
That would be a violation between you and Google as a breach of contract. I'm not a lawyer.
Yep.
On
That's
your
between you
YouTube-
and your God.
on your YouTube, user agreement, right?
Yep.
Whatever. So, so this takedown notice itself is questionable, right?
Yep.
On its.
Oh,
grounds.
I'm pretty confident, not being a lawyer, that
However,
this would not
YouTube-
hold up
yeah.
if a real lawyer actually wanted to fight this.
Well, so here's some problems, right? So here's a positive and a negative problem, right? So
Yep.
the negative problem, YouTube DL made a big boo-boo in that in their documentation, they specifically cited examples of like, hey, like literally the examples in their documentation were like, if you wanted to download some Taylor Swift or some, whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like they used copyright infringement as an example in their documentation of how to use YouTube DL, basically admitting that they were, a tool for illegal uses. They weren't like, hey, if you want to download some Creative Commons licensed videos from YouTube, but you just can't download them because, YouTube doesn't have a download button, like say some GeekNights videos.
Yep.
Which are all Creative Commons attribution only licensed. That wasn't their example. Their example was use this for piracy, right?
Yep.
So that's a negative. So I think a non-technologically sophisticated judge would see that as very bad for
Yep.
the YouTube
Even though the
DL
tool
change.
itself, this
Yes.
feels more akin to lockpicking tools. It is perfectly legal for me to own and carry lockpicking tools. What is
That's a-
illegal
that's a-
is to
pick
use
locks
them
that
on
you
someone else's property.
As long as you only pick locks you own, you're all good.
Yep.
Anyway.
Thank you, lockpicking
so-
lawyer.
Yes. Thanks,
Yep.
lockpicking. All right. Anyway. So then the good part though is apparently this is really interesting. There's apparently a bug in GitHub, right? So in GitHub, you see a repository. What do? You want to contribute to it. You make a fork, right?
Yep.
So it starts out as like Scott/front row crew. Rim makes a fork. Rim/front row crew. He makes his own version of the source code.
Yep.
Then he submits a pull request to me and says, hey, I made some changes. Here's the changes. Please merge Rim front row crew /changes into Scott front row crew, main branch /changes
Yep.
or whatever, /main branch. and I can say yes or no. Apparently, there's a bug in GitHub where if you, it's arguable whether it's a bug or who knows, but if you make a pull request, it'll actually make a copy of that code onto the sort of the receiving repos, area, right? So like, for example, you might make a pull request to me and then delete your repo. I'll still have the pull request you sent to me, right? So it's sort of like a necessary thing in case you delete yourself.
Yep.
In case I wanted to keep that or something. So somebody made a pull request to the GitHub, because GitHub has a repo that consists of every DMCA takedown notice that has been sent to GitHub. So they sent a pull request to that DMCA GitHub that wasn't merged, but it contained the source code of YouTube DL.
Yes.
So you can go to github.com/DMCA or /GitHub/DMCA, to find this repo. And then if it won't be linked easily anywhere. It'll be hard to find, but people are sharing the link. So you can go, it's like you go to github.com/GitHub/DMCA to the repository of DMCA takedown notices that GitHub has received. And poof, there's the YouTube DL source code.
Now, even if it wasn't, DCSS, despite the fact that one long integer was technically illegal, somehow it was very easy to find that integer online. This code is going to be like that.
Right. Also, the fact that the entire world has switched from SVN to Git. I don't know if people realize that with distributed source code control software, we've talked about this in the past, actually, on GeekNights. Go find those episodes. Every single clone of that repo has the entire history of the repo. If you git clone the Linux kernel, you will have every version of the Linux kernel going back to the first version, like on your computer. It takes forever to download the freaking thing.
Yeah.
So if you have ever cloned YouTube DL onto your local computer, you have the code, right? And so all these YouTube DL developers have all the code. You can't really, taking it down off github.com doesn't really stop anything. And they can also file a counterclaim to get it put back up. So nothing has changed on the YouTube side. So there's really no danger of us losing the YouTube DL functionality.
Yeah, which I rely on heavily.
And even so, there are other Git posting places, including host it yourself. So it's like as long as the YouTube DL developers carry on their work, hosting their repo somewhere else.
As long as there's a Discord server somewhere where people talk about and use a private repo, this code will exist.
So there's really nothing to get worried about here, unless the YouTube DL developers decide to throw in the towel or something.
Yeah, but even then, someone else could take their code and continue to make it continue to work.
Yes, as long as those rumored YouTube developers don't make it much, much more difficult to download things from YouTube, then we'll have some trouble.
But on the other hand, I can't see them being able to make it impossible because the frames have to be sent.
But they could make it extremely much more difficult than it is.
They could.
It's not very, in the current way things are.
They could make it to where it's easier to use the analog hole.
Yes, it's not nearly as difficult as it could be.
I guess what I would say is with this kind of copyright takedown, the best case scenario for the people who are going after this kind of tool, the best they could possibly achieve is to make the thing they're trying to protect more of a pain in the ass than using the analog hole, because the analog hole will always exist no matter what, and you can always copy any media at a real-time playback rate.
Yep, pretty much.
But the FF did respond to this, and they said the thing they always say. They called the RIAA's notice disappointing and counterproductive.
Pretty much, yeah.
A sentiment echoed by activists who work in the fields of civil rights, human rights, and hate speech.
Yeah, like I said, there are many legitimate uses for YouTube DL that are not copyright infringement, and that should have been what the examples were in the
Also,
documentation.
notice, it's not the movie industry. It's not videos. The people who went after this code are the music industry because they are arguing. We talked about this on our last Geek Nights, too. The RIAA and the music industry is really thrashing right now, generally.
Yeah, they're really going after Twitch as well, right? That's why Twitch is bringing the hammer down a little bit.
But there's a reason why we've always hated the RIAA in particular, because even though we do have to figure out a way to pay musicians, the RIAA has basically never acted in good faith when it comes to copyright at any point in its existence.
Right. Well, and at least in the Twitch, like YouTube does pay people. In fact, it's sort of, goes too far, right? If I make a video and include a copyrighted song in my video, then the YouTube policy is basically, okay, I use Rolling Stones, right? The Rolling Stones come and say, hey, you used our song. We're going to put a claim on your video. Your video is now showing ads, and the Rolling Stones take all the money. It's like, excuse me, right? You should get maybe a portion of the money from this video, but there's also the part that I made, right? You're taking my money and just
my 20-minute
right?
video has 2 minutes of your audio. You get 2 out of 20 of my revenue.
Exactly, right? Some sort of, but no, they just take everything, which is bullshit, right? And then on Twitch, it's, Twitch is obviously, don't think that because Twitch is not completely capitulating, it's sort of covering for its streamers.
No, Twitch is completely capitulating.
No, it's not. It's sort of being evil both ways, right? On the one hand, they're like taking down people's videos just without even saying, just like, oh, take all this crap down, so, to get these people off our back. But on the other hand, it's like Twitch has purchased music licenses, but it's only purchased performance licenses, which are the kind for playing music in like a restaurant or that kind of thing. It's technically supposed to be because you're synchronizing video and the music, you're legally supposed to be purchasing sync licenses and then if it's a VOD, mechanical licenses. Right? So Twitch is not paying the musicians, right? So YouTube steals all your money from the video creator and gives it to the musicians, right? It's almost too music friendly, right? But meanwhile, Twitch is the opposite. It's like, okay, they're taking down streamers' videos to make them upset, right? And to sort of get the RIAA to go away a little bit, but they're also ripping off the music people, not paying them.
And this is at the intersection of someone buys a game, but the game has music that is licensed within it, but do they have a right to stream that game or not? If the this whole area is becoming a big clusterfuck.
The person who makes the game doesn't care. They're like, please stream, because that is better marketing and gets me more sales than anything else I could spend marketing money on. In fact, I will give the streamer money to stream the game. I'm paying you to do this, right?
Yep. And you do see some more and more games are having completely original soundtracks to bypass this entire process. Where the game itself, like music came with the game and it's just part of that game. There's no separate music license.
Anyway, the final story is if you didn't know that it's possible to download YouTube videos permanently to
Welcome
your computer,
to the party.
and you've got videos that might be taken down at some point, or you're worried about not being able to see them easily again, you should get the YouTube DL tool or a similar tool and download all your favorite
YouTube videos. Be wary, though. If you get a similar tool from an untrusted source and it's not source code, it's probably malware.
Make sure you're getting some sort of legitimate tool.
If you Google for YouTube downloader, you're going to find a lot of malware.
There's some out there, yes. There's also some older unmaintained tools that don't work because YouTube changed. And they didn't maintain them. YouTube DL is actively maintained.
All right, go to things of the day. But anyway, things of the day. So check this out. This is a 2-second video looping in a tweet. That is my thing of the day. But what this video is the surface of a comet seen through a blizzard of dust, ice, and cosmic rays and a backdrop of stars. This is a fucking video of the surface of a comet. Holy shit.
Is a comet just a ball of ice?
Yeah, and rocks. It looks like...
Wouldn't it just look like an ice cube with rocks in it?
It looks like a cliff face with rocks and a blizzard happening and snow.
Okay.
It's really cool. It's a goddamn comet.
All right.
I mean, we've landed things on comets. Like, comets are neat. Comets are probably where a lot of that water on the moon comes from, too.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's all I got.
I've been doing the bike to nowhere situation because there's nowhere to go and the weather sucks now, right? So when you're doing the bike to nowhere software, right, you sort of can't avoid learning these new things like FTP. Ever heard of FTP? Not the file transfer protocol, but the other FTP?
Nah.
Functional threshold power. It's like the average wattage you're capable of putting out in 1 hour.
Oh, I've seen people talking about wattage hour stuff on blogs, but I don't care enough.
You bike as hard as you can for an hour. What's the average wattage you would put out over the hour? That's your FTP. And
all right.
TSS, it's like this scoring system they use. It's not very complicated, actually. It's just a simple formula, which has to do with it's mostly based on wattage and length and time. But it's basically a scoring system for how difficult a particular bike ride is. So it's like if it's a 200 TSS, that's a really hard bike ride. But like a 50 is like, all right, you biked, you know. Anyway, so all this stuff. So I started going on YouTube to better understand what the hell this stuff meant. And I found this channel, this guy, Dylan Johnson. So Dylan Johnson is I don't know if he's professional or not, but he is definitely a competitive endurance mountain biker, right? So, and he places highly. So he's really good at it.
Endurance mountain biking is extremely difficult and painful.
It actually looks to me like I would think
It's
I'd rather
fun.
do that than regular mountain biking, because like regular mountain biking, like, you know, downhill is like
No,
scary.
you mistake. Downhill is a separate subcategory of mountain biking. Most people who say they're mountain bikers do not do downhill mountain biking.
Right. But it's like, this looks way less scary. It just looks like, hey, you're biking a long way, which I do anyway.
Yeah.
Only it happens to be in the dirt and there might be some rocks and shit, and you have a mountain bike instead.
That's most mountain biking. That's when I say I'm doing mountain biking. That's what I'm doing 90% of the time.
That actually seems okay. But anyway, so this guy does that very well. And he is also, I guess his profession is he is a coach, right? Athletic coach, trainer person. And he's got a YouTube channel where he talks about stuff. And normally when I search and try to find any exercise, health, fitness, wellness, you know, I even like the term wellness. If they use the word wellness, that's usually a red flag, right?
There's no pride out of there. That's one step before homeopathy.
That's right. Whenever you see that kind of YouTube channel, you're like, this is going to be a bunch of woo bullshit, right? How do I know I can trust what this guy's going to say? Dylan Johnson has done the best job of convincing me he knows what he's talking about, because all his videos, right, are all about him reading every single study about the topic, right, and saying, well, this one says this one says that, this one says this one says that, and this one says this. So in the end, what can we say is true to the best of human knowledge as of today? We don't know, or this, or the opposite of, you know, what you thought. And he answers a lot of questions that are very relevant to any cyclist who is even slightly more than non-serious, even if you're not considering racing. Like, I have no interest in racing, but he answers a lot of questions like, are the clipless pedals more efficient than just flat pedals?
That's the one I'm looking at and the one I'm going to watch after the show.
Is what's the right seat height? What, you know, is it better to be low, high, in the middle, right? How do you figure it out?
I think this is extra important for biking specifically, because the thing I found about biking that I've not found with a lot of the other sports I do is that biking people tend to always say there is a one true way to do a specific thing. And there's never seems to be evidence to back that up. But it's like this very specific dogma about, like, here's the rule on how to size your seat exactly to you for your bike. Do not deviate from this.
Yes, there's a lot of conventional wisdom in the cycling community, and also a lot of just common sense.
Yeah.
That sort of things that just make sense, right? And you know, things you look at pro cyclists and you like Tour de France, and you see them doing something, and you say, well, that must be the right way.
Yep, but no, maybe not. Not always.
Maybe not, right? You know, I saw a video. Did I do that as a thing of the day? Like, what's the best position to be in going downhill? That's
I think you did, because we talked a lot when we did that show about Superman's the best position, but don't do Superman.
Right, exactly. So, but yeah, Dylan Johnson's channel is incredible. I've learned a lot so far, and I've only watched like a handful of the videos. I'm probably going to watch all the ones relevant to myself and adjust accordingly. So yeah, if you bike at all and care about getting better at biking, is a must-watch channel. Good job, Dylan.
I guess it's just interesting that when I think about this, like, I run into that conventional wisdom and doctrine way more recycling than other sports I do specifically. Like, even skiing does not have this. Like, when you ask a question of a ski instructor, the answer is full of a lot of caveats and it depends and a lot of sort of like, this might work, but it might not. Let's try. But with cycling, it's just always like, put your seat at this height based on this formula.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a formula, but which one's the right one?
Exactly.
Dylan knows. He'll tell you.
So in the moment, we're stuck at home. You can watch our panels on YouTube. Join our Discord. I don't know.
I thought about reading.
Fucking like vote. That's it. Just go fucking vote for Joe Biden, or things are gonna get real bad in a hurry.
If you are eligible to vote in the United States of America and you do not vote for Joe Biden, get the hell out.
Yep.
And if you live in New York State, you should vote for Joe Biden on the Working Families Party line.
You should.
To make the governor mad. It will count the same, I promise you.
Yep, it still counts for Joe Biden, but it pisses off Cuomo, and all good people hate him. Bad people hate him too, but so do good people.
Same thing for the mayor. Anyway.
Yep.
I thought about reading a chapter of our book club book.
Oh,
The
so
Tale
fancy.
of Genji, but instead, I read a comic book.
Read a comic book. You know what I did instead? I played a bunch of Star Wars and like made some food and went hiking.
I made some food. I played some Link to the Past random.
The problem is, I like normally this season when I'd go hiking, I'd have a long train ride to and from the hiking that I would read books on. But now the only way to hike safely is to drive places, so I have to drive the whole time.
Hike to the hiking.
That'd be like, yeah, let me bike to Poughkeepsie to then bike to Albany. Like, I mean, I guess I could get. The problem I'd have to camp because to get to those mountains, I would have to hike about 70 miles from Queens to get to those mountain trailheads. 70 miles would take me 3 days, 2 days if I like death marched it, but really that's a 3-day hike.
70 miles in like 7 hours.
Yeah, bike it. Let's see how far you can walk. How long it'll take you to walk 70 miles?
Days?
Yeah, take about 3 days. 3 days if you're really fit and good at walking.
I'm good at walking.
Are you really? We should test this. You want to go for a walk?
My legs are long. Therefore, I'm good at walking.
But yeah, vote. Otherwise, like, the next week's going to be rough for a lot of people, so just be ready for that. And we'll try to just keep doing Geek Nights until then, and maybe at some point we'll have some downtime and actually read books again.
My major concern these days is that hockey will resume, and for some reason they will allow people to go to hockey before it is safe to go to the hockey.
because then we have to sell all those tickets because I'm not going to hockey.
Right. They want to sell all these tickets because, and even though I said I would go as soon as I could, I'm not going to go if it's not. That was assuming they wouldn't let me go until it was safe, right?
Yep.
So and for that to be my concern, I'm doing pretty well.
Honestly, though, the way the news is trending, I'm pretty sure COVID's going to be like a wave worse than anything we've seen up to this point. Over the next few weeks, that's going to happen. Like, things are looking pretty bad in most of the country.
We'll see.
The only saving grace for us personally, luckily, is that we live in New York City, which, except for one neighborhood, is actually trending very well. Like, one specific neighborhood.
Couple neighborhoods.
Only one neighborhood is the red zone. There are 3 yellow zones.
And one of the other ones is pretty big, though.
Yeah, but that one big yellow zone is around the red zone.
No. There's another yellow.
Oh, the one out by Kew Gardens. That one's pretty big.
Yeah. Second one.
Anyway. So let's get right into it. We've talked about facial recognition off and on over the years, but we never really did a whole show on it.
AI episodes. We've had some privacy episodes. We've
had,
things like that. But it's in the news so much, and we don't have a lot of Monday ideas. So send your Monday ideas to us, because Mondays, for some reason, are like slightly more popular than the other days, even though they're the hardest to come up with ideas for.
Yep. Wednesdays are the least popular days, and I think it's because we're the old men of anime at this point.
Maybe it's because we just know more about technology and gaming than we know about anime, and that's why.
Well, we don't watch as much anime as we used to. Like, I basically only watch great shows now. Though, total aside, remember way back we were talking about how we should watch Decadence? Because there's like people keep talking about it. We watched the first 2 episodes. Yeah. At the whole first episode, you're like, all right, it's a show. All right, I like it okay. At the very end of the episode, you're like, wait, what? And then episode 2, the show is not what it looks like. Holy shit, it is not what it looks like.
Okay.
And I think it's specifically up your alley directly. You personally, Scott Rubin.
Is there a terrible secret of space?
Oh, is there? And when you see...
Is there a train that quietly goes out into the night and has a moral
I think when you see what a certain character looks like, you'll see what I mean. That's all I can say.
A cute robot?
I can't. Everyone who's tried to get me to watch the show has said the same thing. I won't tell you anything about it. Just watch it. Do not read about it.
Where is it available?
Funimation and Hulu.
I don't have either one of those right now.
Yep. We happen to have Hulu by accident, so we watched it on Hulu.
Okay.
I didn't know we had Hulu. Apparently we had Hulu.
I previously had Hulu before I had Netflix. I'm currently in Netflix mode. Once I get out of Netflix mode, I might go back to Hulu mode. We'll see.
It's hard, though, because Netflix has just got so much constant good stuff lately.
Yeah, I did. I watched like that Michael Jordan documentary. That was good.
Yeah, you can watch Akipo. Season 3, the 3rd season is the last season. Anyway, facial recognition technology is a good topic because it is so illustrative of the tech transfer ethics concerns of technology. But unlike nuclear weapons, it's not like just killing people. There aren't that many like peaceful uses for nuclear weapons. There were a few. They were terrible ideas, but there were a few. You can read about it if you want. Nuclear mining was a thing for a while. It was a terrible idea.
That's a bad idea.
Oh, it was tested. It's a bad idea. But
you don't say.
Facial recognition is one of those technologies that, one, is unstoppable. There is no way to get rid of this technology. So
Genie cannot come back in the bottle. We know how to do it, therefore, and all you need to do it is a camera and a computer. You can buy those things off the shelf.
Yep.
There is no putting the genie back in the bottle. It can be done, and it will be done.
If the world banned facial recognition technology, the source code exists, and just like YouTube DL, people would use it on their own hardware, and it would still happen.
And unlike, if the world banned nuclear weapons, well, there's only so much plutonium, it can be regulated, it can be detected with Geiger counters. There's ways to do something.
Almost no one on Earth knows how to make a thermonuclear device. That is...
there are very easy, or at least relatively easy ways to enforce that law and detect violators. To stop people from using facial recognition is almost impossible because it's already in so many things.
Yep.
And you would have to ban digital cameras, which are being there must be factories on Earth in various places just spewing out thousands of digital cameras a second. It's unstoppable. You can't do anything about it. Right?
I just think of that old Bloom County strip randomly where they're making that illegal drug. It's a legal drug, Opus and the crew are making it, and the government just declares it illegal. And they see the news and they just yell "Stop pouring the stuff, Oliver!" Stop, cut it off.
But literally, there must be a factory somewhere where they're just little tiny cell phone cameras, they're just coming out in flood. There are tons of them. Anyway.
But also, facial recognition has a huge number of extremely beneficial uses and a huge number of extremely dangerous uses.
Right. So first of all, it bears mentioning that facial recognition is really is not actually the technology. The technology is simply image recognition, right?
Yep.
Is where you use machine learning to train a computer. You give it lots of data, so images, and you tell it, hey, this is a cat, this is a cat, this is a cat. Here's a new image you've never seen before. Is there a cat? And if so, where is the cat? And this is a software. There's instructions online, tutorials, how to write that exact software yourself. You can write it. If you want to make one that detects something, right? All you need is the database of whatever it is you want to detect. So human face is simply you're detect human face, right?
Yep.
And then you go to the next step and you say, okay, you found human face, right, in this picture. You've counted them. You've identified them. Now here's a database of human faces which have names and phone numbers attached. Find the phone numbers of all these faces, right? That's the step 2.
Yep. Now, even worse, think about how humans
work. You can find the phone numbers of all the cats, but they don't have phones.
Humans are uniquely suited. We can identify other people very quickly and unconsciously just by seeing their face.
Some people can.
Well, yeah, unless you have a disability like face blindness.
Which is a great reason for a positive use of facial recognition.
Yeah, imagine if Penn Jillette could wear a Google Glass, and whenever someone walked up to him, it showed them if he knows this person and what their name was.
Right, a face-blind person with ARG that identified faces that the person already knew and told them their names. That would even be useful for people who weren't face-blind if used appropriately.
Yeah,
right.
I don't remember anyone's names. Do you know how great that would be if people's names just appeared over their heads when I was in a panel at a PAX taking questions, or someone comes up to me and they act like they know me and I have no idea who they are.
Right, it's if people who already did know me and had seen my face and knew my name, if only they could see my face and instantly recall my name with a memory aid. Maybe they aren't face blind, but their memory is just normal.
I like you didn't say bad, you just said normal.
Yeah, or not perfect because no one's is, right? Or hardly anyone's is. That would be a great and good use of technology, right?
Yep.
People would know. It would help people connect with each other, what Facebook says they want to do.
But it also makes this technology uniquely suited to identifying individual humans, because the human brain, we've sort of evolved to where specific cues in our faces can be rapidly parsed by our brains to remember who someone is. Meaning, it doesn't take that much facial data for a computer to do the same thing. You only need a little bit of data from someone's face.
Right. A face is easy to find. It's got, mostly, usually, two
Look, humans
eyes
are good at finding faces that don't even exist.
Right. It's a roughly circular oval type shape, right?
Yep.
There's a limited number of shapes, and it has distinct features, right, that are easy for this kind of computer software to find. And then it's also, so even though it's easy to say that's a face, but then once you have the face cut out, faces are so unique and varied and detailed, especially with high resolution cameras, it's easy to tell faces apart and say, well, which face is it? It's like two different questions. It's actually two technologies at work, right? One for step one and one for step two.
Here's an example of how the exact same app even that used facial recognition could be used for great harm or great good. Because this is an app I've always wanted. I even wrote like a document at RIT describing this app as one of my classes. So I remember I did a lot of research on facial recognition back in 2003 for my tech transfer class. And the app I put together was basically, I called it That Guy. But what the app was, so you and your group of friends, like our group of friends, or like the Geek Nights listeners as a whole, we all like friend each other in this app. And say one of us, of our group of friends, encounters someone who is an abuser or a piece of shit. Like someone who is an annoying that guy at conventions, or someone who is like just being misogynist and racist and terrible at conventions. If I flag that person and say, oh, that person, like that person was racist to me at this con. And then at another con, Scott meets someone and his Google Glass just pops up and says, hey, Scott, so Rim said this guy was a racist.
Right. Now, the only reason this is working is because me and Rim already agreed, the fact that I've friended Rim on this service already means I trust his opinion, and I'm only seeing the opinions of people I trust. I'm not just seeing data from randos.
Exactly.
Right?
So even in that context, evil use, exact same app. An evil person who is, say, a stalker or a sexual abuser flags the faces of people who are easy marks or who have been abused successfully so that friends in their shitty pickup artist network could get a notification of, hey, this person you're talking to in a bar, this is a person that this other pickup artist already fucked with, and here's the cheat sheet on how to pick them up. That's fucked up, right? Same app, exact same app.
Or a way to detect, like, people who are like, good at detecting them, right? So it's like, maybe you're a criminal and you got all the cops' faces, right?
Yep.
Or maybe you're a protester and you got all the cops' faces.
Yep. Or maybe you're a cop and you got all the protesters' faces.
Or the criminals' faces.
Yep.
Right?
And this is
be good, it could be bad.
This is why there's so many amazing
serial killer on the loose. We have a video of the serial killer, and now we're going to use facial. It's an actual serial killer, actual crime, not bullshit, right? And now we're going to use the facial recognition technology on all the security cameras, and an alarm will go off if the serial killer is spotted anywhere in range of a camera, and then we can go get them to stop them from serial killing again. Right.
Oh, so I was actually looking something up because I remember seeing something about how the BCEC, where PAX East is every year, had that system. Remember when they put in that system that could figure out the number of unique people in the building based on like low-key facial recognition? The city of Boston has actually recently banned the use of facial recognition technology. And I wonder what that will mean for the fire code counts at the BCEC.
Yeah, I wonder, I don't know about that system specifically. I heard rumors that it could count people, but I don't know if it could like look up people. But in China, they absolutely have ones that can identify individuals in a crowd. Basically, cheat sheet, where's Waldo? Right?
Yep.
That's literally what it is.
Now
it's
think
like
again, how good could that technology be? A kid gets lost.
Ridiculously good.
Yeah, a kid gets lost. No, I'm saying how good in terms of boons to society. A kid gets lost in a city or a giant convention center, and cameras are immediately like, the kid is here, highlight him, give coordinates, and follow him until someone can go find the kid and save them. Or the
bank is robbed. We arrested this person. Oh, but then we checked the camera footage and we exonerated them. They were actually at this other location at the time of the bank robbery.
Yep. The main problem is that generally, when a technology is powerful like this, the people who have more real-world power can leverage this technology more effectively against people who wield less real-world power. What that means is that governments can use it more effectively than private citizens. Police can use it more effectively than private citizens. generally disadvantaged communities can use it less effectively than more privileged communities. So
Now,
it'll
we do have
exacerbate
access-
existing divides in society.
We do have access to this technology. You can get it and just use it yourself for your own purposes. The problem is your data that your database of faces and information about those faces will be severely limited. And in order to build up that database, right, it will require, you're not going to be able to build as good a one as the government, who can put cameras all over the city.
Yep.
Right? And use tax money to buy giant computers.
Or you could even see hackers, like a lot of facial recognition software that is made by like smaller companies or private individuals. They all train it using the same like generic data sets you can buy. Meaning, if you understand the biases in that data set, you could possibly exploit someone's implementation of facial recognition to pin a crime on someone else.
It's actually a huge problem, right? Is that even people who do have, lots of data, right? Advanced systems, those systems are often racist. Like you have a huge database, but the database is all white people. Or, let's say China. The Chinese database is almost entirely Chinese people, right? So if I go over to China, that system might, I imagine it would just be like unknown, not Chinese person, right? Or maybe they would take my photos when I come to China and then they would put me in the database and that way they could find me. But it might have a hard time because it's heavily trained on Chinese people, right? Who have different facial structures.
So some of the things the tech can do today are things like from a data set, find one person. Or find like the people who are most likely to be one particular person. Or I'm trying to think of like good examples that don't require me to show an image or a diagram of some kind.
Wah, wah.
Wop, wop. Or like they're especially powerful when you focus them on a very specific community. Like that's right now where the tech is the most powerful. The community could be just you, like your face unlocks your phone. That's a community of one person. Or you and your like small group of friends, like you use it as you can buy door locks that are electronic, and some of them have the ability to like unlock your house based on just looking at your face. That's cool.
Really, if you're talking about small uses, right? So your camera, using the first part of the technology, just find human faces. I don't care who they are, right? So you take a camera, it finds faces, and therefore autofocuses really well. Because most of the time when you take a photo and there's a face in it, you want to focus on the face because who wants a photo of the tree, right? No, if you're taking a photo of the tree, there wouldn't be a person in the photo, right? Looking at the camera.
Yep.
And then step 2, right? This is also a really, completely mundane but useful use of the technology. Whose face is it? Automatically organize my photo collection based on who's in the photo.
Now, I've had that technology forever. My fucking old GX1, I programmed in the names of a bunch of our friends, and it'll tag the photos I take with that thing with their names.
Lightroom does it. Pretty much every photo app these days does that, right? It's like basic. It's like a standard feature. It's not even an advanced new feature. It's like expected that you have this, where it's like, okay, find me photos I've taken of Scott. Oh, here's all the photos in my library with my face in them.
Yep.
I didn't have to do any, like tagging by hand, like I used to have to do in the old days.
Yeah, I increasingly, I take a lot of photos, I generate a lot of video. I've increasingly stopped bothering to fully add the metadata necessarily to find specific things in the future because it's not worth the effort. I'm sort of waiting and relying on technology like this to do that for me in the future.
I really wish people would apply, because there's no reason, technologically speaking, this couldn't be applied to audio. You should be able to say that MP3 is a GeekNights episode, right?
Yep.
Without having to put ID3 tags on it. It should just know. It might not know which episode or the topic, but it should be able to say.
Well, let's see. They're talking about a bike commute, and then okay, so that doesn't narrow it down at all.
No, it doesn't. Right? But you should be able to have one that's like, oh, here's a song. It's just automatically tag the genre and possibly even the artist, right? If it doesn't, and not base, the way most music things work is they're looking at like, they just have a database of the exact songs, right? Like, here's exactly, the song, a Beatles song. Oh, this is that exact song. It's My Guitar Gently Weeps. I know this song, right? But what if it just didn't have a database of songs? It just had a database of, singers and musical styles, and was saying, oh, that's a rock song, and who do we hear singing? Sounds like the Beatles, and automatically tagged, the music library that way.
Yep.
Right? There's no reason that couldn't exist right now if the database is large enough.
Yep. Now, actually getting to the database, because one of the listeners, Sam, is actually posting a lot of good info in the stream right now because he works in this space. But the database
Sam,
is...
if you're doing evil shit, quit the job.
Yeah, he seems like he's not doing evil shit because he's talking a lot about ethical concerns.
Good, and leak that shit, if it's
But
evil.
thinking of what you just said, a lot of the more advanced uses of facial recognition require machine learning of some kind, meaning training data sets. The data sets encode the bias of society at the time the data set was collected and the biases of the people doing the collecting. We've talked about that a lot on Geek Nights, and it doubly applies here. Like, the facial recognition software built into like my smartphone just fucking doesn't work as well on non-white faces.
No, of course not.
Like, straight up, because that's what do they train it on? They train it on data sets that are mostly white.
Yeah, or the people working in the office where they made the software, right? I think that's an old story that they like. It's true story, but they tell it a lot. Where it's not even facial recognition. It was like a paper towel dispenser or a soap dispenser where you put your hand in front of it and then the soap just comes out without you having to touch it.
Yeah.
And all the people who worked in the engineering team that designed the hand detector were white. And then black people put their hand under it and the soap didn't come out and the paper towel didn't move.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, oops, maybe you should have had some, employees who weren't white.
But
racist.
The weird danger of facial recognition is that a lot of the most powerful things we could do with it for the benefit of society are also the most dangerous. And if we make the data sets more equitable and we make the core technology better, which is going to happen, we actually enable those larger, broader uses more readily.
It's like, yeah, let's put, we wanted this to be less racist. Okay, add more black faces to the database. Oh,
all right,
good.
now it's equally good at oppressing black and white people.
All the black people, right?
Yep.
It's like, aha.
So
great. Now the cops have an even better idea of who to go after. Thanks.
I don't know how society is going to deal with the next generation of facial tech, 10, 15, 20 years from now, when some of the examples we've talked about become not only widespread, but easy to implement. I think this technology is massively disruptive.
At least in countries where it's well and heavily regulated, right? The corporations and government won't be using it for nefarious purposes.
But we live in America. I'm not even worried about the government using it so much as I'm worried about private companies using it.
Right. A well-regulated country, right? It'll be the corporations and government won't be using it as much or in ways that aren't, well controlled. But there's nothing stopping the general public from using it in who knows what way.
Yeah.
As long as they, if they're technologically sophisticated. So there will be, some sort of YouTube DL-esque, right? If you're in the know and you can set up your own fancy tech and you get this database from some Pirate Bay, then you're going to have evil facial recognition technology and use it for evil. But also maybe use it for good.
Yep. But I don't know, there is also no way to constrain the power of this technology except through government regulation and transparency. Or adversarial use of it. There have been a number of articles recently talking about cyberpunk and you want to know what cyberpunk really is? Because basically the police and law enforcement in America are already heavily using and abusing facial recognition. There's a whole, not to get into specifics, they're definitely using it. They're definitely abusing it. They're definitely targeting protesters with it.
If you were at a protest, all right, we took photos of everyone at the protest. We didn't do anything. And then we walk around town. People are just going to get groceries. And then with facial recognition technology, it says, oh, that person in the grocery checkout aisle, they were at the protest last night and they were anti-cop. And then they go out to put the groceries in the car and then we get them and they're alone. Right. And we know it's them because we photoed their face at the,
Yep.
We captured everyone's face at the protest with our facial recognition technology.
Yeah, but that opens up the door to, let's say we have good regulations and controls. So, all right, the Baltimore Convention Center has their facial recognition thing that keeps track of the fire code count, and they use it if a kid gets lost to reunite them with their parents. That's all good. And let's say they even don't use it unethically, directly. The company just uses it for its purpose, and that's all fine. One low-paid employee who has access to that data could abuse it.
That's right, or leak it.
Yep, leak it or abuse it. How many times does some cop get caught looking up an ex-girlfriend in a database to then go commit some crime?
Yeah, something like that.
Yep. But
Or, maybe there's somebody who's like, trying to hide, and that person who controls the thing is like the evil person who's trying to find them. Or maybe, someone just breaks in, right? It's
yeah.
like, that the person you're a stalker, and the person you're stalking, is at a convention in the building, and you break into the office and you use it and you find where they are in the building, right? Otherwise, your chances of finding them are so small.
Or you just call someone who works there and socially engineer them, similar to how people's SIMs get stolen all the time with cell phones. Because a lot of people in the chain are not paid enough to care.
All right, so the last thing we should talk about, which is pretty obvious and well spoken on the internet, but is that, this technology is, at least for the foreseeable future, somewhat actually easy to foil, because it's not so advanced to the point where it can see through things.
Yep, wear a mask.
You can use masks. You can just shield your face. You can use various kinds of makeup.
No, so I have read numerous studies showing that dazzling makeup has zero effect. That is not...
maybe that specific, but there are other kinds you can use.
No, that makeup basically doesn't do anything. Only cover and concealment does.
Obviously, that helps the most, right? But there you can do... I'm not talking about like makeup, like, somewhat tame makeup.
No, the extreme makeup seemed to have no effect either, because some of the more...
on your face, like some extra eyeballs that are like realistic and shit.
I saw a lot of papers talking about how that stuff's all trivially foiled.
Maybe. We'll see. But I'm pretty sure.
But a mask is a mask.
Yeah. Cameras can't see through things. I guess you can infrared cameras, but that's still not going to give you the resolution that you need to really identify a face.
Yep. I was reading earlier today, because getting ready for the show, an article about using basically LiDAR and other technology from cameras to generate pseudo 3D models of faces as well as 2D, and how that drastically improves the quality.
The new Pro iPhones have that, at least.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised the new Pro iPhones are adding that and using it for autofocus when like a Canon DSLR doesn't have it, and maybe it should.
No, maybe it should.
I have seen people selling systems, third-party systems, that you can basically attach to any manual lens with gears, and it will use LiDAR to slowly and shittily focus a manual focus lens automatically.
Not too bad.
So there might be someone who needs that. Like, you really need autofocus no matter how shitty it is.
Yeah.
You
You've got like some ancient specialized manual only lens.
Yeah, you care about it focusing accurately, but you don't care, and you care about focusing automatically, and you don't care about money, and you don't care about how much equipment you're carrying. But you don't care how slowly it autofocuses either. You're okay with that. Then this is a good choice for you.
Yep.
But that could develop into something much better as time goes on.
Now, one direction this could go is, that whole cyberpunk thing I was talking about. One way to control this kind of technology, if it gets out of control, is for organized activists to aggressively use it against the entities that are oppressing them. Case in point, the recent groups of protesters who have been cataloging police violence from videos and then using facial recognition to identify and document the specific officers involved in the abuse.
Right, so you're hanging out, and there's a bunch of cops coming, and you're like, all right, those are all good cops. They have like this many, looks up their faces and looks up in the database and says, here's how many violations those cops have, how many times they've gotten in trouble for beating someone up. Oh, 0, 0, 0, 0. These are the 4 good cops in town. Okay.
Yep.
And the next one, right? And then you come across another cop, and it's like 20, and it's like, oh, taking another street, getting away from that guy.
Yep. Or even just as simple as, all right, a cop just committed some violence in the street. You got some video of it, and you prove, oh, that's the same cop who attacked this other person 2 days ago, attacked this other person 3 days ago.
Or a bunch of undercover cops ain't so undercover anymore unless they cover their face. Like, oh, there's a bunch of people coming to join our protest. Wait a minute. Those are cops.
And
get them out of here.
Getting back to YouTube DL, kind of bringing this all together, that is the kind of tech activism that will be necessary if governments don't step in and properly regulate these things in an equitable manner. That is the only way to protect yourself from technology that's out of the genie bottle, is to use the technology against the people who are using it against you.
The last thing I think is one possible route that I haven't seen explored much is database poisoning, right? It's like if they're collecting faces and failing, and that's learning more faces, right? Just somehow feed into the cameras lots of wrong or messed up or otherwise, faces that mess up the data. It's theoretically possible. I just don't know if it's practical, but it is a thing I've thought about.
So I have been doing a database poisoning experiment for most of my life since late middle school. I put slightly wrong birthdays into everything I ever put my birthday into that is not an official government record. And what I found as time goes on, websites that I do not have accounts with or that I make a new account with, like things that I interact with, will sometimes have my birthday somewhere or will send me a birthday thing, even though I didn't tell them my birthday. And based on what birthday they say, I can trace back to what database they got that data from. I haven't done much with it. It's just something I noticed over the years, but I was thinking of it because a couple weeks ago, I remembered that my birthday in Steam is from the year 1978 because that's the year I picked for that particular platform. And hitherto, the 1978 birth year has never shown up anywhere else. It's only in Steam. I was just thinking about that the other day, but it's relevant to the whole database poisoning thing.
All right, so facial recognition is going to be with us for the rest of our lives.
Yep, we cannot make it go away.
As long as you have a face and a computer and a camera, and the cameras are connected to the computers, you're going to have to learn to live with it somehow, right?
Yep.
I recommend a good start, extreme government regulation, which is happening already, so that's a good sign.
Yep, extreme government regulation coupled with cyberpunk activism.